If you're finding you're giving lectures and no students are turning up, well, what can you do to replace that so students come in excited, wanting to be part of the action in class? If you're finding that students aren't doing all the pre-reading that you're setting them, change that. Think of what other activity is possible before they come to class so that they do engage in the activity. So it's not about redeveloping the whole entire unit, it's about looking at what aspects need to be redeveloped. The Better Teaching, Better Learning agenda is about ensuring that all components of the unit are aligned. So starting with your learning outcomes and how you're going to assess what students have achieved. You also need to be thinking about the pre-class activities that you're giving the students and how you're going to utilise them actively in the classroom so students really build on that knowledge, get more excited and want to delve into the details of the discipline even further. There's little subtleties that you can do in your teaching that can make huge improvements. For example, you might think about yourself as a presenter. How engaging are you as a presenter? How are you getting across the knowledge that you need to get across to students? What support are you giving your students? So not just you yourself as a person, but also your tutors. You might be looking at the learning activities you're giving your students. What type of learning activities are you giving your students? If you want teamwork to be developed, there's no point in making every piece of activity an individual piece of work. You need to consider the types of assessment, the specifications, the rubrics that you will use to assess that piece of work. As part of my National Teaching Fellowship, I've been looking at what students have been saying in terms of what can be done to improve units. And we've done this across 4 universities, looking at units that are doing okay, but how could we make them even better? What can you do to make things better? And students pulling together over thousands of comments by students. Students talk about the facilitator, elements of the facilitator or attributes of the facilitator that can change to make the learning better for them. And that might include the support that you're giving your students, your approachability, the way that you present. They talk about the assessment. They talk about how the assessment is written and specified, the outcomes that they're meant to achieve from the assessment, an understanding of how it's going to be marked, so the rubric that's provided. They talk about the learning activities and making them engaging and making them in a way that promotes their learning and they're relevant and aligned with the outcomes of the course. They talk about the resources that are provided. So is the learning management system easy to navigate? Can they find the resources? Are the resources really relevant that are being provided there? So they talk about a number of aspects that can really help academics make small changes to the unit but have really substantial improvements. We know, the research tells us, that when students come to class with some background knowledge, they can start to construct their knowledge even better in the classroom through active activities. The pre-class, in-class and post-class concept is about 3 things. The first thing is getting students excited about what they're going to be covering. So that's the pre-class stuff. We need to be thinking about what sort of things we want students to do so that they can engage in some of the key critical concepts so that when they come into class, it can be really active and they can engage in those ideas and really start to construct their knowledge. And then the post-class part of the activity is really trying to assess that they've understood the things that they need to understand, and along the way to be providing them with feedback so they know how to improve.